5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, welcome to Ending the Stigma, A Path to Recovery. I am Fred Carroll, joined with Scott H. Silverman, and our guest today is Miss DEBORAH Driggs. How are you, Deb?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you so much for having me.
Do people call you Deb, or is it always DEBORAH?
No, most of the people in my life call me Debs.
Debs with an S?
Yep, Debs.
It doesn't have to do with multiple personality or anything.
Well, it could. I don't know.
You never know. You never know. You never
I don't know. Let me check. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let me check with that.
Give me a second. I'll pull her record, Fred.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Let me check with her. I'll get back to you on that one.
So today we're going to be talking with DEBORAH, Debs or Deb, whatever name you want to call her. We're going to call her today, but we're going to let her tell people who you are, from your history and stuff. And then we'll get into more of mental health and things that you dealt with in your life.
Yeah, well, I'm a girl that grew up in Southern California in the South Bay area, Torrance, Hawthorne, Manhattan Beach, that whole area. And I grew up, in what people would call a dysfunctional home. And why was it dysfunctional? What does that mean? Today it can mean so many different things, but it meant that I had two parents that were just not available. And they were both kind of in their own worlds, trying to survive and doing the best that they could with what they had. They got married very young. My mother was 19 when she had me. So she had absolutely zero tools of how to have a family, be a wife, and be a mom. And so because of that, I dealt with a lot of trauma. And when I use that word, I know it's a big word nowadays. Everybody uses that word, but anything that has to do with abandonment or where your feelings aren't really validated or anything like that can be trauma. A surgery is trauma, and I had a lot of sickness as a kid that was trauma. And so from that, I kind of persevered in a world of like, I'll show you and I'll do really well. And, attention, I think, was my first addiction of, look at me, because I was just craving everybody's attention and would do anything to get it. I'd put on shows, I would sing and do all of that. So there was no accident that I ended up in the entertainment business because I was really starving for attention. And I got validated through a lot of success that I had in that industry. And, I thought things were going well. I really did. I mean, I had proof. I was on the cover of a lot of magazines and I was booking commercials and I was in proximity of a lot of people in the entertainment world. And I was getting called in by casting directors to read for movies and I was booking movies and pilots and, and it looked and appeared as though I had all this great success. And it all really came to the forefront in my marriage. And my marriage really took the beating of my childhood trauma, because I didn't know it at the time. You don't know what you don't know. And I just thought I was having a hard time with this or with that or with this person. I didn't realize that it was stuff that I was doing and bringing to the table. And I found myself at 40 years old, broke, divorced, no money, 3 kids, no job. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm not modeling anymore. And I'm not doing all these things that I did in my 20s where I was making money and everything just seemed to come easy. And now I'm 40 and I'm struggling. And so I had to reinvent myself and pull myself up. And from 40 to 50, there was just so much chaos and all of the stuff that I had tried to sweep out of my life and pretend didn't happen. It just kept showing up. And, and I would just be terrorized by this unidentified trauma that was happening. I didn't know. And I started drinking more in my 40s just to get that to stop. you know, just whatever that was. And I couldn't even tell you at the time. I didn't know what it was. There was something and I didn't know what it was. It was almost like I was just had this big cloud around me. And just to get it to stop, I would just drink. Thank God I'm not pulled towards drugs or prescriptions or any of that, because I could see myself really going down a bad path. But I just would drink a lot more than normal, and I started to become very rageful, because all of this stuff that I had been pushing down for years and years and years was just like, let me out, let me out. And so I went on a journey in my 50s. And I finally went on the journey of like, okay, we're going to go on a recovery journey and figure this out. And so my story really is the journey of, you know, this young girl growing up in the South Bay area, no money, 2 parents that weren't really there, ending up in Hollywood. There was no nepotism. There was nobody held my hand and said, this is how you do this business. I did it all on my own. To getting married, having 3 children, and then losing everything. And why does that happen? You know, what happens in life so unexpectedly to a girl that looked and appeared, and people would say this, you always look like you have it so together. Why would something like that happen to somebody like me, where I would end up in a lockdown facility in a straitjacket where I'm being told that I'm crazy? And I thought to myself at that point in my life, when I was sitting in a lockdown facility with people who had very serious mental illness, I thought, wow, I've done it this time. Like, I don't know how I ended up here, but something's got to change. Something's got to give. You know, I don't know what it is, but for me to end up in this situation where I had to be taken by straitjacket to a psych ward, there's something definitely not right. And, you know, it's just become recently that people have really talked more about getting rid of the stigma and the labels, because I think when you're labeled, you're crazy, you're an alcoholic, you're ADD, you're OCD, you're a shopaholic, you know, all those Post-its, and you walk around, it's like all it is just this big barrel of shame, you know, and it's like you're trying to peel one off and another doctor slaps another one on, and all of a sudden you're just you're just a sticky board for Post-its, you know. It's like label, more medication, more labels, more medication. And so I had to kind of take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and just say, okay, let's get to the root of it. And I don't even know if there really is a root, but that just sounded good at the time, to, instead of ingesting a pill that doesn't even work, how can I go on a discovery and come up with a better plan, a better recovery, a better solution? And so that's really, I think, the story in a nutshell of who I am, where I came from, how mental illness has affected me, what my family background was. And then, you know, the book that I'm writing today is hopefully there to inspire somebody who has gone through some type of trauma, abuse, neglect, abandonment, to know that it is much more common today. Just, we didn't talk about it. My family didn't talk about it, and I surely did not talk about it until I got into my 50s. And that's horrible, you know, to carry something like that around, you know. And I always use this example of, you know, if somebody were to put a stack of pillows in my arms, right? And each pillow represented all the things that happened to me negatively in my life, I would be walking around just like completely like trying to balance all these pillows. And then when you meet somebody and you try to have a relationship and you're like, here, can you hold this? I can barely hold it, but hey, could you hold it for me? And oh, a little more to the left. No, to the right. Oh, you're not doing it right. Give it back to me. And then we go try to find the other person to, and it's like this vicious cycle of just complete insanity because we never dealt with what was in, here, what we're holding on to. And I thought I had done such a great job of kind of pushing it all aside, and I didn't. I had not done a good job of that.
So, Scott, what do you think about so far? What do you hear?
Well, I know that it's funny. Every one of the labels.
It's funny.
It's funny because all of the labels you've talked about, unfortunately, I've had badges of honor with all of those in being in long-term recovery. I had an intact family, and I'm still married to my first wife, but everything you just described. I mean, I was institutionalized. I didn't wear a straitjacket because I was a little overweight. They didn't have one my size, and they couldn't attach two of them together. So I relate to everything you're saying, and now I'm in the treatment business. I'm a crisis coach, a family navigator, and I've gotten some great tools over the years. And actually, I just released a book, just came out, took me 3 years to put together, called The Opioid Epidemic, because that's really kind of where my passion is, just because we're losing 240 people a day in our country to this horrible drug, opioids. And most of it now is counterfeit medication, where kids are taking stuff that looks like Xanax, but it's actually cut with fentanyl. So, I empathize and I know how difficult it can be. And we work with, we call it untreated trauma, and we use tools like EMDR, and we use mindfulness and CBT and medication-assisted treatment for those who are on it, need to get off of it. And you're absolutely right when you say, so many people and are impacted by it. And when you as an individual are impacted by it and it goes untreated, usually one of the outcomes of that is, PTSD. And then people around you will get it as well if you don't get treated, if they're close to you. And this was a study done by the Veterans Administration, where people came back from war and they went home and, got back to their family and tried to get into normalcy. And all of a sudden the significant other and the kids are acting out, and it's the person who came back who was untreated who's impacting them. And it is a family issue, in my opinion. And part of the reason I jumped on board with Fred was, just the name, Ending the Stigma, because you're absolutely right that, I talk about being an unlicensed pharmacist, and that's about as nice a way I can put it. And then, I talk to people about what I do, and I'm an SME, so I get a chance to get on the news and talk about what works. And if you don't know what works, raise your hand, ask for help, and let's start the process, because there is help and there is hope.
It's unbelievable the minute that I asked for help.
So, which is unusual, because usually it's somebody else asking for you. So where are you today, and what are you doing today that you would share with others? Top 3 things that just organically, when you get up in the morning, you do this and you do that, or you add this to your day or month or week. What is it you're doing now that really helps you with the self-care path?
That's a great question, because it's taken me a very long time to get to this place. And so the things that I know about myself now, and I know the triggers, sometimes something will happen that I don't recognize. And so I have a plan now, where in the past I did not have any type of plan. So I would just be acting out of what I thought was adventurous and spontaneity, but really it's not a good place for anybody who's a victim of trauma. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I have a plan now. So what I do is I get up in the morning and I struggle. So my mind literally wakes up and goes right to just chaotic thoughts. It's just the way it is, right? And so I go, okay, mindset, I talk to my mind now, and I just say, here's the deal. We just woke up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a nice cup of hot water with lemon. I'm going to put on my binary music or my meditation music, and I'm going to sit in silence and let my mind stop these chaotic thoughts for a few minutes before I do anything. Because if I don't start my day out this way, it'll go any way it wants. And because I know that I have that impulsive side of myself that really wants to be in charge, I have to be very aware of how to set my intention of how I want my day to go. So I used to want to do 1,000 things in one day. It just was the way I was. I get up, I because I'm very success oriented. I'd want to get 100 emails out. I'd want to make 100 calls. I'd want to do all these things. I had to stop all of it. I had to change everything. And I'm still successful. So I want people to hear this. I had to change my approach to help with the mental illness part of my situation. So I start my day off slower. I don't even look at my emails until my whole body is in sync, meaning the thoughts in my mind have slowed down. I've taken in hot water, tea, have my coffee. I have to do my writing first thing in the morning, and it has to be either a gratitude list. It has to either, I can riff. If something doesn't want to leave my thought, I'll just riff about it. Mm-hmm. Or I write a gratitude list, or I write a letter. Now, when I write a letter, it's not a letter that I intend to mail. If there's somebody in my life that I feel that I can't talk to because there's something there, I'll just write a letter and then I let it go. So I get this all out before I even start my day. So I try to get up at the same time every day so that I'm training my mind constantly. This is the routine. This is what we do. We don't negotiate. This is how it works. Just that simple shift completely changed the way my day goes, because I get up, I have the routine, I have the thing, I have my hot water, I make my bed, I put on the meditation music, I do this routine, and then all of a sudden I set up the stage for the day. And then I think about, okay, how do you want the day to go? Where should my attention be today? What are the 5 most important things? Or is there anybody I need to call? What are the tasks? Because I have to work. And then, if I have to go out of my house and I have things to do. And for a long time, I was I hate labels, but I had a little bit of agoraphobia, where if I went outside, it would cause me all this stress and angst. And I would just be like, I don't even want to leave my house. So now if I leave my house, I have a plan, I don't just leave. I have a plan. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do this and this and this, and then I'm coming home. Where in the past, and I didn't know this, it isn't until you sit and look at your map, your road map, till you can figure out where your GPS is off. You don't know unless you look. And I could see that I was just running off of nothing. There was no plan. There was no exit plan. There was no, routine. It was just all bunched. And that causes me stress. And I think anybody who suffers from any type of mental struggle, mental illness, whatever you want to call it, if there's not a plan, it makes it even harder to deal with those issues. Right. And so for somebody who struggles, I know when I go out, it's real easy for me to get caught up. Like today, I had to go to a meeting, and it was from about 11 to 1, and it was near an outdoor mall. And I remember I was walking in my car, and my mind starts going, oh, I could go into that shop, and I could do this, and I could do that, and and all of a sudden I've got 100 ideas, and then I remember my plan. And I go, no, that's not on the plan. The plan is to go home because you have a call at 3:00. And remember, Deb, on your plan, you wanted to make sure you had a healthy lunch before you had that 3:00 call. It's like I have to remind myself constantly to stay on the plan. And I don't know if this helps anybody else out there that struggles, but for many years, I thought I had a plan, but I really didn't. As far as it wasn't a plan to help me and guide me. It was just a plan to get stuff done. But this is really the plan to help me and guide my soul and guide my and keep me strong, really, because there are little things that can trigger me and I won't even know it. It'll just happen. It's almost like a diabetic eating sugar, and then they go into a complete full on, effect from it. That's what a trigger can do for somebody that's dealing with post-traumatic syndrome or traumatic stuff or abandonment or, whatever it is, alcoholism, drug addiction. I don't care what it is. If you're triggered, you could go into a full-on episode. And I just know that there are certain things that could happen if I don't stay in my routine and on my plan. Now, does that mean I don't go on vacation or I don't go on a hike or, I do all those things, but I put it in the context of there's always a plan around it.
So you did have, hold on. You did have an interesting blog post the other day about being a runner.
Yes.
And what you meant about being a runner was, and I fall into this, you run the minute there's chaos or problems, you run, and that's in relationships, jobs, everything. And I'm very much like that myself, with especially in relationships. Instead of dealing with the problem, I just cut it as a loss and run.
Yep.
And
and I did this. Do you know that during my marriage, I counted this out when I was writing my book. I counted out that we moved in a 12-year marriage 14 times.
That's a lot of times.
That's a lot of moving. That's a lot of moving. And that's a lot of trauma, because we have 3 young children that we took on this adventure.
Right.
And they contracted that running gene, they get it. So when they see me kind of going, oh, I want to change everything. And, and this is the longest I've lived in one spot. And it's interesting because it is time for me to move, but I'm very careful now. I'm like, okay, I'm taking, in the past, I'd be just like, I'm out of here and pack everything up and move. Where this time around, I have to be very everything has to be thought out. I can't
that should, let me press you a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, when you say you don't know if this will help anybody, I know it will, because we're talking about it, and you and I have just met and we're openly talking about it. So share, because, I've worked with a variety of different populations over the years, from underserved, homeless, ex-offenders, disenfranchised. And as a crisis coach, usually when I get a phone call, the house is on fire.
Yeah.
And the family's trying to put it out with squirt guns, and that just doesn't work. So let me ask you to share with our viewers. And I think Fred has 2 viewers and I have 3. So you're talking to 5 people that we believe are secretly watching us today. Tell people, because when you say make a plan, and it makes a lot of sense, but for someone who's never done it, how would you suggest they start that? What would starting a plan look like if they've never done it before? They call you. Is that something you do with your potential book and with coaching you want to get involved with? Because I learned working with people that had been incarcerated for a long time, everyone said, well, they should go back to school. And what we found was we did a survey with a lot of our clients at the time. And you know what the number one response was? I don't know how to go to school and register. I don't even know where the schools are. And if I get there, what do I say? So share with us one thing that got you started with that plan. What was the starting point that, you put your shovel in the sand or your broom or pencil, whatever it was, and said, okay. And then what did you do to get that started? Because I think that kind of
it's a great question, because I have tried so many other people's programs. Okay.
Yeah.
I have. I've done everything
I laugh,
from
who hasn't?
Yeah,
who hasn't?
I've done everything from the Oneness Academy to Master Code to Tony Robbins to, I have tried, I even was going to do the 75 hard, just anything to do a program to help whatever. And then one day I woke up and this was in November of 2020. Or maybe it was November 19. Yeah, it was like 2 years ago. I woke up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock, because I have insomnia, and it's one of the things that I deal with. So I woke up at 2 a.m. wide awake. And what was going through my head is, do your own program. Stop doing other people's programs. It's inside you. You know what to do. And I literally got out I have 2 whiteboards in my office because I have, my plan is written on my whiteboard in front of me every day. But on the other whiteboard, I took a marker and I literally wrote my plan out. And so what I did for 1 year, and this is in my book, is I didn't travel. And I was one of those people that got on a plane a lot. So I did not travel. I did not date. I did not drink. I did not engage in anything that would cause a trigger in my body. What I did is I removed a lot of stuff, but on the other board, I gave myself a lot of stuff. And I thought, I'm going to do this program for no less than 6 months and see if I see a change in my behavior, a change in my mental attitude towards life. Because I actually used to be this really optimistic, adventurous, really happy-go-lucky girl, and I really turned into this very agoraphobic, scared, fearful, worried, sad person. And so I thought something happened. Maybe I can figure it out if I just sit and do my own program and stop listening and taking in information from 1,000 other things. And so that's what I did. I sat for 6 months and did nothing except what I do on a daily basis. Because I think what happens is people get incarcerated, people get in lockdown, they get institutionalized, they try to get in recovery from drugs or alcohol, from sex, from whatever it is, gambling. And then they want to change everything fast. I'm one of those people. Oh, well, just put me in a Tony Robbins seminar. Just put me here. I'll do this and this and this, and then I'll be better. Doesn't work. What works is coming up with a practice every single day. And by doing that practice every day, it gives me momentum to then maybe, possibly, once I have this simple program in place, maybe, possibly, I could go back to school. Because maybe, just possibly, I can get quiet enough to see if that's even something I want to do. I think sometimes people start getting clarity and they immediately want to jump into something quickly. And that's kind of was my past, because I am smart and ambitious and successful. And it's really hard when you are an entrepreneur and then you deal with mental health issues. It's really hard to sit and be quiet and not want to continue to be successful. What can I do? What can I do? What can I invest in? How can I distract myself? And so I thought, okay, I'm going to sit back now, do my program, and see if this works, see if this helps, see if I see a change. Well, not only did I see a change, but everyone around me feels the change. And by the way, by me becoming this quiet program, doing my program, what works for me, all good things, right? By doing that, all these other things start happening, and I'm not really doing it in an ambitious, fast way. Everything's just happening. And so there's something nice about just surrendering and trusting that everything is going to be okay. When I stop listening to this recording in my head and I say, you know what, it's been really nice visiting with you, but we're going to put you on pause. And I'm going to go back to this program that I have in place. And it's not easy to do. When you get in those moments, the simplest things can sometimes be the hardest things to do. So it's funny because I've had people come into my office and they'll look at my whiteboard and it says, no traveling, no dating, no alcohol. I took a photo of it, so I'd always remember what I wrote. And they'd be like, you do that? And I'm like, yes, I do. But that might look like a diet because I don't believe in diets. So this is what I removed, but this is what I get to do. Come here. And then I have a whole board of sit in silence, go on a hike, go for a walk, read a book, You know, it's prime, deep breathing, call 5 people, tell them you love them, write your blogs, create, read, you know, keep adding to your vision board. You know, these are all the things that I can do. So it's not like I'm taking food away like a diet. You know, it's everybody's going on diets. They don't work because you're constantly taking away.
Right. You're not depriving yourself anything.
I'm not depriving myself. I'm actually giving myself so many beautiful things to do that the minute I feel like I'm deprived, because those are the things that I'm used to doing, that I'm not doing, and I go, oh, yeah, I know what that causes, but guess what? I get to do this beautiful thing over here. Once it's in front of me and it was written in all these different beautiful colors, and I'm not the best artist. So, you know, I did the best I could, but it's all the colors, all the visions, because when people, you know, I would say this a lot. I feel stuck. It's not so much that I'm stuck. Nobody ever really gets stuck if you think about it. It's just a way of describing how you feel about something. But the stuckness for me, if I really analyzed it, was never dealing with stuff that was really important to deal with and was overlooked.
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite sayings is, my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I never go there alone.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
There's no reason to.
Did you have a mentor or a coach or somebody who kind of held your hand and guided you through this process?
Yeah, I had quite a few. You know, I have, like, I call them my 5 go-tos. So I have people that I go to if I need a cheerleader, you know, that aren't going to give me advice, but just go, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
You need those people in your life. And then I have people that are mentors, and the mentors I use for my business world. So I go to those people when I need help with publishing or an agent or a life insurance deal or whatever business I'm working on. I have my mentors, and then I have coaches. And the coaches I have one for training and rehab because I have a few injuries at my age. And then I have coaches for mental health because that's super important. You know, I have people that I go to that will say, you know, Deb, that's not good thinking right now. You know, I have to have at least 2 or 3 people in my life that understand. And then, you know, there's places that I'll go to for mental coaching and help. I go to wellness places. There's a place in Tennessee that has a living centered week, and they deal with past trauma. And so it's not like rehab, you know, it's a place. It is in a way because they don't allow cell phones and stuff like that, but it's just for 7 days, and you go and you deal with stuff as it comes up. And, you know, it's like once I went on the journey, those places started appearing in my life. And then I have certain go-to books that I feel are coaches for me, because those books will literally put me right back on, this is why you're doing this track. This is why you're doing this. And then I have people in my life that I just have fun with, where there's none of that. There's no coaching, there's no mentoring, there's just people I have fun with and I want to hang out with. And I think it's really important to have that community and be set up with that community. And it's interesting because now that I, you know, and I also continue to educate and grow myself. So obviously I have experience that I can share with people, and it's just that it's my experience of what I've been through. And I my hope is that maybe there'll be a young girl who's struggling that picks up my book and goes, oh, I don't have to wait till I'm in my 50s. Let's get this now. You know, that's the hope for my book, is I want it to get in the hands of young girls who are smart and vivacious and fun, but they're like being pulled down and stuck by really.
And I think you've got to stop complaining about being in your 50s, considering I'm in my 60s. So for God's sake, stop that. You know?
No, I'm just getting started. Yeah. By the way, I am just getting started. I say this all the time. People go, because I'm really proud of the fact that I'm 57, because I feel kind of like a late bloomer, you know, really. I'm getting it when I get it.
the life expectancy for people now, there's absolutely no reason why you can't reinvent yourself every day if you want to.
Yeah,
And
for the
I
next
believe
50
there's always-
years.
I mean, look, Fred and I are hanging out together, and there's really no explanation for that. And you know, we're trying to get him a coach because we're teaching him about love and feelings. And you know, it's so funny when we get close. You can always see he goes to one of his screens and he, you know, leaves the room and go drinks a Red Bull or something.
Yeah.
But you know, or eats some seaweed. I don't know exactly what he does. We have to kind of follow him around. So let me, Fred. You have something? I have a couple more questions, but go ahead. You want to jump in?
Well, I want to know, you know, because I have interviewed you before, but in a more comedic on my Within the Head of Fred, which wasn't all comedy or anything. It's not like we're all comedians, but we were talking about your life more. But building off that interview, I was wondering, like, when you were at Playboy, did they have mental health available to the girls and stuff?
No, not that I'm aware of. And that may just be because I was very good at hiding my stuff back then. I appeared as if I was the it girl and I had it going on and I knew everything and I could solve anything. I appeared to have this massive amount of confidence. And so if there was, I wasn't aware of it because I wasn't struggling out loud.
Right.
In my 20s, I literally, it's amazing to me because, you know, it's 30 years later and I look back at that time in my life and it's so amazing to me that I ignored so much stuff that was so obviously dark and not well, not healthy. You know, it was there, but I just kind of like never looked. It's like, okay, yeah, I know you're there. Just stay right there. Okay. I don't want to look at you. I don't want to look. Duh, I'm not looking. And that's where I kept it. You know, it's like, I knew it was there, but I didn't want to look at it. But when it really pulled me down in my 40s, there was no other choice.
Did other people's trauma cause you more trauma? And when I'm saying that, I'm meaning because you had mentioned you were friendly with Nicole Brown and OJ Simpsons and Kardashians and all them. So did that instance affect your life?
None of that that high profile stuff did. It was more of the little traumas that did, you know. Yeah, I am one of those people that feels energy on a very deep level. And I'm aware of that now. So I have had this since I was very young. I can walk into a room and literally say, I can't stay here and leave and not make any excuse for it. I've just always been that way. If I walk into a room and it doesn't feel right, I want to leave. I feel this energy and it's very super intuitive and I listen to it very clearly now because I've had really strange experiences with it. So my first boyfriend in high school, I was 14, 15. He was my first boyfriend. It was like a ridiculous boyfriend girlfriend thing, nothing serious. And I didn't want to date him anymore. I didn't want to go out with him anymore. And when we broke up, he punched this big hole in my wall in where I was living. And it was, you know, to me, I knew that was not right. That was not normal. And so, you know, my dad told him, if you ever come back, you know, I'll call the police and you're never to come here. Well, he killed the girl after me. He killed the next girl after me. And her name was Brenda Maloney. You can Google it, in Hawthorne. She lived 3 blocks from me. And I remember all the neighbors, everybody, the sirens, everybody was going. This was like a year later. And my next door neighbor said, did you know Brenda Maloney? And I was like, yeah, of course I know her because she was a year younger than me. She's dead. And my whole body just went white because I knew that he killed her. And, you know, it's like that kind of stuff happened to me in my life. Weird stuff like that, where I just dodged these weird circumstances by the fate, you know, by the grace of God. Yeah. I survived such weird, traumatic situations. And I've always been that way, though. Like, I just know. And
Well,
it's funny because my kids will say to me, why do you want to leave? And I'm just like, can you just trust me on this? I just don't want to be here.
So sometimes your run theory works. You know, running away from things is a positive in some form.
Yeah, and I don't consider that running because that's
self-preservation.
That's self-preservation. That's intuitive, really going off intuitive. You know, where I run is if things aren't going well in my life, I'm going to go to Cabo, or I'm going to go to Europe, or I'm going to go live in Europe for a month. You know, that's running. But my intuitive stuff, like I work with this woman, another person that I work with her every 2 weeks. We do it remotely because she's on the East Coast, but she is she's just a very intuitive, spiritual. She brings in all the spiritual guidance, and we go through and we clear out all the energy in my body. And she'll say to me all the time, Deborah, she goes, you know, I work with a lot of people, but you are so intuitive. Like, I just feel it. And we're like remotely working together, and that we've been working together for a while. And I just, I have very strong feelings about things. I was working with somebody, and I call it a red flag, whatever, something happened. And I thought, I don't want to work with that person anymore. And I called the incident in my head a red flag, because what that red flag represents to me is the moment the information comes in and something in your mind says, this doesn't feel right. I don't want to work with this person anymore. Something they said bothered me. And I thought about that a lot. And I thought, you know, when that happens from now on, I'm not going to say, oh, okay, I'll give them one more chance. I'm not going to do that anymore, because my body is telling me something for a reason. And in the past, I would give them 2, 3, 4 chances before I'd actually let the situation go. Now I nip it in the bud a lot quicker. So once that red flag hits, I go, okay, and I write about it. And then I usually nip it in the bud and end that relationship or that situation pretty quick, because there's no sense in seeing where it'll go, and there's no sense in seeing if it will change. You know, when people tell you who they are, believe them. They tell you, believe them. And if you really listen for clues and you let your intuition guide you, I promise you it will not steer you wrong. I've never been steered wrong when I really listen to my gut.
So, you know, Fred, I'm thinking what it might be like taking a long trip in a motorhome with Deb. You know, we'd obviously have to drink a lot of hot water and lemon in the morning, which means at my age, we'd have to stop a lot. Then we'd have to figure out what we're going to have for lunch. And then we'd have to look at her plan. And then if it didn't fit her plan, she'd probably bitch slap us. And then we'd have to, change our GPS, pull over and discuss it. And then we'd have a little prayer meeting and do a little sage, and we'd start over again.
Exactly. Oh my God, we have to have sage and lavender.
And imagine having her angels on the bus with us. So Deb, tell us, what have we not asked you today that you would like to be asked? What would you like to share that maybe you don't get a chance to do it? Because, we think this is the safe place for it. We think this is a place where people can come, and whatever it is that, it's kind of interesting. We have a platform here that really is just how to reduce the stigma, how to have a place where you can come and talk about what's going on, whether it's your child who's addicted to the internet right now, or a behavioral issue going on with a family member, or a catastrophic event that's taken place that, happened somewhere maybe in your childhood, and it's pinging against you right now, and you can't just whisper it away on your own. But there is people out there that can help guide you and listen. There's a saying, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And sometimes just listening to another person tell their story can be good for them. And then the next part of that is, because I think for me, there's a saying in the program, I can't keep it if I don't give it away. And whenever I'm doing something like this, even though it's with Fred and he does have his, character defects, we actually made a list. Took us 3 days. It was 3,475 of them. And look at him. He's so proud of that. So
3,000.
423. And this was This was just a few people that helped make the list. Those who knew him pretty well. We didn't go to the audience. We're afraid.
That's right.
So what question should we ask you that you would like to be asked?
You know, I don't have an answer for that. I just, you know, when people ask me certain things, I jump in and do that. But I agree 100% that, you know, there's, you know, I vacillated back and forth for a long time about writing a book. And I kept saying, no one's really going to want to read about some playmate that was in Hollywood and got a divorce and went to lockdown. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Because guess what? If it helps one person, it's worth writing the book. You know, if it helps one person.
So where do people get the book? Where do people get the book?
It's not public. I'm self-publishing. So I'm just forming my publishing company as we speak. And
Okay.
I will be I decided that I'm going to self-publish it. And so I am educating myself right now on everything publishing, if you can believe that. I'm actually publishing 2 books. And so one of the books I'm publishing is my grandfather's nonfiction book that he wrote called Son of a Basque, because his family's from the Basque country in Spain. And they migrated to Mexico. They were chased out by Pancho Villa. And then he grew up in Delta, Colorado, working on beet fields. He served in 3 wars in the U.S. They wanted him to in World War II, they wanted him to work in the Hispanic section of the Air Force Corps because you had to be educated and speak English and all of that. And he worked really hard and got to fight with the U.S. Air Force Corps. And he was a tail gunner. And he went on, I think it was over 40 missions and survived. And the one time he didn't go up on a mission, his whole crew was shot down. He was in the infirmary because he had pneumonia, and his whole crew was shot down. And so he writes about that. And I had never read his story until he had already passed away. And when I read it twice. And that's the first book that's getting published because it's his story. And by the way, by reading his story really leads into kind of, that's just one of my, you know, my mother's side of my family. That's not even, we haven't even gotten into my dad's side of the family. So it made so much sense to me when I read his book, because I thought, oh my God, I had no chance, because I know some of the stories on my dad's side. My dad's mother was a street alcoholic. You know, she'd be on the street sleeping with a bottle of bourbon. And my dad's father had to divorce her, and he remarried a widow with 3 daughters, and that was unheard of back in those days. And so now my father grows up with 3 stepsisters and a brother. They're like the Brady Bunch in the 50s and 60s. This was like, you know, nobody did that. And so, you know, then my dad he got his mom's gene. He's a full-blown alcoholic. And then my mom had this father who fought in 3 wars, total PST, total. I mean, and then he worked at San Quentin. He was a prison guard. I mean, the story is unbelievable. And so I thought, oh my God, this book I have to publish. And I think it can be a movie as well. And then, so I'm publishing that book, Son of a Basque, and then my book will be following right after. And my book is definitely the memoir. It's really about surviving undiagnosed trauma, because listen, when I was growing up, if I wanted to talk about a problem, I was told, get over it, move on. You know, if I cried about something, I was a crybaby, you know. And my mother's mother was British, so she was a war bride. She married my grandfather, the son of a Basque. They married in England and had my mother. So my mother's British. So I got the stiff upper lip, you know. They were very British women, you know. So I grew up with this no feelings were ever talked about, ever. And, you know, if I only knew, you know, like for some reason, all of my life was so great compared to everybody else's. And So it's just amazing to go back and uncover all these layers of unidentified trauma. And so that's what my book is about.
Did your parents, are they alive today?
I think my father's alive. I haven't seen him since I was 19. And my mother is living in Ocala, Florida, and she is alive. And we talk.
I was just there. I was just in Ocala.
Yeah, that's where horse country.
Yep. My brother-in-law lives there. Ex-brother-in-law lives
Yeah.
there. But so you don't know if they ever dealt with their issues or anything themselves.
Oh, I don't think
not that generation. They did. They
No.
they were taking pills, Valium, and you know.
Yeah. My
Xanax.
grandmother, my mother's mother was a pill popper. That's
That
what we called her.
generation was. Yeah, it's pretty
She
common.
was a pill popper. She had a drawer. She had a drawer of Valium and you name it, she had it.
So
You know,
tell people where they could find you. Of course,
I would find me on my website, which is DeborahDriggs.com. Everything you want to know about me is on my website, all my social media, when my book is coming out. If you sign up for my emails, you will immediately get my 15 tips, which is basically what you were asking me, what I do every day. So if you sign up for my email, you'll get my 15 tips. And then every week you'll get a reminder that my new blog is up, because I've written over 50 blogs.
So Deb, just to be clear, because you said that's where you would find you. Where would you like other people to find you? The same place? I'm listening to what you're saying. I mean, you started out with, there could be one or two personalities. I see the little shadows behind you.
I talk sometimes like there are, so yes.
But what's important too is what you say to those other people, and listen carefully, because they could be your guides. You never know. So
they are my guides now.
So when we get offline, we'll exchange information, because all the things that you're doing now. I mean, I just self-published. I call it Right Turn Publishing. I've had that name in my head for 40 years, and I'm on Amazon with the book, and
I'm Crystal Woods Publishing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Fred, you've been very quiet, and I know you're still thinking about that long trip in the motorhome. And you can drive. It doesn't matter to me, but I'm from California, so I have more experience, but we're going to bump into things if I'm behind the wheel. But maybe Deb's a great driver, since she's
I am.
Yeah.
I'm a very good.
Then we'll just sit in the back and sleep.
Yeah. Well, I'm quiet when Deb's on, and when she was on last time too. I still get intimidated by her a little, but once again, now I could tell all my friends I've spent 2 evenings with a Playboy Playmate, and end it right there. And I'm quite happy to say that. But I want to thank you for coming on, because once I read your blogs and stuff, I knew that you had something to say. And Scott and I often talk about, if we could find people that are, we believe that fame, you could pay it back. And I'm not saying, you're not A-list actor or someone like that, but you're somebody. You've succeeded in this world. You've been in so many places. And we think it's important that people know we have problems too. We have issues too. And
Absolutely.
If we could talk about it, if we could have an open discussion and dialogue, maybe we could save one person out there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be it.
And that's brilliantly said.
And so that's going to be it, Scott, for this week's episode.
Well, and one of the things we say in the program is, some of us, Fred, have more issues than others. So, and I'm not pointing the finger, but the guy with the headphones and the hat in this segment right now, funny, Deb, I'm more excited about the untreated trauma conversations than the other part. Not that I want to discount that, but when people genuinely come from the heart and talk the way you talk, it resonates with people. And after this pandemic, there is no way people are going to walk out of this the same as when they went into it. And I'm hearing it from experts in the field. And I've got a colleague I'm working with. He's an addiction psychiatrist, and he lost 4 of his colleagues, psychiatrists, who ended up taking their own life this last year because they could not practice their profession with people, because that's what they do. And they just had this inability to process, evidently, and something triggered it, and they took their own lives. And we're losing too many people. So
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you coming out and being
Thank you.
candid and
Well,
forthright. And I want to keep the conversation going.
It's what's motivated me to get certified as a life coach and take my training to a whole other level, because I have a lot of different certificates, and, you know, from yoga to pranic healing to all these different things that I've always been interested in.
Just the experience in your family, I'll show you how to pull some nuggets out of that, pushes you way ahead of the herd, simply because anecdotally and experientially what you've experienced and how you've processed it. You know, and I know a lot of this, I'm grandfathered in because I've been coaching for decades, but the certification people keep calling, well, you need a, no, I don't. Just Google me and you'll realize that whatever it is you're trying to get from somebody else, I've been doing it for decades. And not that I'm smarter than anybody else, but when you've had a chance to live it, eat it, breathe it, experience it, and then process it, and then move forward and share it with others and be an example for others.
That's why I want to do it, because I thought, okay, I mean, the only reason, and the pandemic is really, like you said, this was the time more than ever that people needed it.
Right.
So everybody out there, make sure you go over to DeborahDriggs.com. You could check everything out on her. You could check out Scott H. Silverman at his website. What is that, Scott?
YourCrisisCoach.com, or just Google me and find out that Fred and I do know each other. It's real. We've never met physically, but
well, now we all know each other.
That's right. Yeah. And you can find me at venomstudios.com. That's VENOMSTUDIOZ.com. Scott, you want to give out your phone number?
I do. Area code 619-993-2738. 619-993-2738. Please call me or text me, and know that if I can't help you, I will find a way to get you some help. That's what a family navigator does. And if you don't call, there's no reason for it. Don't sit there and wallow in it, you know. And as Deb said, just woman up, man up, make a phone call, ask for help. Yeah. The 3 hardest words in the English language. And it's amazing what I'm willing to do. And again, if I can't help you, I'll find some help for you.
Okay. Wonderful. So that's going to be it. So thank you, Deborah, for joining us, and hang in there. We're going to talk to you off the air. So that's it for ending.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Goodbye.